This month, we've been taking a deep dive into AI. And while we've spent a lot of time on what artificial intelligence can do, we haven't really looked at where it comes from. Data centers are secure physical rooms that house critical IT infrastructure that allows artificial intelligence to run. But questions have been raised about the environmental impacts of these centers. Inside Climate News reporter Dan Guarino joins me now to break down data center impacts and restrictions. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
So let's start with everyone's main concern, electricity. A recent International Energy Agency report reveals that in the U.S., electricity demand is projected to grow 2% annually through 2030. About half of that increase will be driven by the expansion of data centers. How is the need of this energy being met?
You meet this need by building a lot more power plants. You also need to find ways to be smarter about how much power you're using, to use more energy conservation. But so much of the focus right now is just building power plants as fast as you can. And what we're finding is our systems are not really good at rapid building. There's all kinds of obstacles. There's all kinds of what you would call red tape in the grid region that includes Youngstown and Ohio. So yeah, this is a real challenge. We need to build a lot of power plants, and it's tough.
Right. In Ohio, there's a proposed bill that would put a lot of limitations on the Ohio Power Siting Board in supporting renewable energy projects. Now, CleanView, a market intelligence firm, reports 46 U.S. data centers have claimed they would build their own power plants. But do limitations like the one proposed in Ohio affect the environmental impact that data centers have?
When a data center is bringing its own power, when they're building their own power plant, it's easier. It's you don't have to jump through quite as many hoops, but that plant is still connected to the grid. So you're going to have issues with electricity demand and it affecting the market for electricity demand. You're also going to have all kinds of environmental impacts. So it's something that it's a real concern. And one of the big concerns is those plants in the report you're talking about are all natural gas plants, or a large share of them are natural gas plants. And if you have that much natural gas generation coming online, that's going to affect the market for natural gas. That's going to affect how much gas costs to heat my house and to be used in power plants that are generating electricity for everybody else.
Let's talk about environmental impacts. A Cornell research term found that by 2030, at the current rate of AI growth, 24 to 44 million metric tons of carbon dioxide would be in our atmosphere. That could have a major impact.
And any idea of kind of a carbon budget, this idea that there's only so much carbon we can still emit without having some really harmful effects, it kind of goes out the window when you're building data centers as fast as we're building them, and when you're using natural gas and fossil fuels to power a bunch of them. So if you're someone who's paying really close attention to how much emissions this world can handle before things just kind of go haywire, you look at the proposals that are happening, and it's pretty disquieting. Now, one kind of mitigating factor is all of these plants are not going to get built. All of these data centers are not going to get built because we're in this moment where there's a lot of hype about building data centers, and a lot of them are going to get built, but they're duplicate projects. There are projects that are kind of exist in name only. They're just a press release in search of funding. And it'll take us a little while to kind of sort out which of these projects are real and which ones aren't. And then we can start to get our hands around these bigger questions of how much electricity we're going to need.
Right. And then, of course, water. We're talking about the amount of water could be equal to the annual household water usage of 6 to 10 million Americans for these plants. With water a finite resource, how concerning is that?
It's very concerning, and it's different levels of concerning depending on where you are in the country. Water availability is a lot different depending on where you live. Places that have plentiful water and have easier access to water would be more attractive sites for these data centers. Now, that's not necessarily something you want. You don't necessarily want to be an attractive site for a data center because there's a bunch of reasons that these things would be kind of concerning neighbors. But the Midwest is a part of the country where some of the concerns about water availability are less than they are in other parts of the country.
In 15, 20 seconds, any actions we need to be taking to ensure data centers don't cause problems for our environment?
I think it's a matter of electing leaders who are going to responsibly oversee this stuff. There are processes in place for when big power users want to come online, and it's a matter of following those processes and also just adapting them as times change.
All right, Dan Garino, we appreciate the insight.